95 chains. I'm a ball out Tom Brady. Michael Vick, I'm a dog.
What's going on, everyone? It's your brother Jamon, the coach of the LA Rams and the commissioner of the Madden move. Here we are in season 4. Give yourself a pat on the back for knocking your games out with high momentum and continuing to push the league forward. I really do appreciate it. Today, I just have a league recap. I want to touch base on things that are going on with certain teams and players and give some guys some recognition. So let's touch base on what the league history is. Season 1, you had that Super Bowl trophy headed to the AFC for the Colts and Coach Phillip. Season 2, it bounces back over to the NFC for Coach Brian of the Eagles. And then season 3, Coach Jabani and the Chargers. The AFC represents the Super Bowl trophy here. So congratulations to those 3 Super Bowl winners. Here we are in season 4. Can that trophy head back to the NFC side, or will it stay on the AFC? All right, guys, like I said, I want to touch base on some things that are going on around the league. First and foremost, I want to introduce and shout out to the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Coach J-Mac. The previous coach was relieved of his duties, and we now have a new head coach looking to be a fighting force in that division and turn that franchise around. So welcome to the league, Coach J-Mac. All right, guys, let's dive straight into the league standings, man. We do have 2 teams that are undefeated. And you know, we've had that competitive battle, AFC versus the NFC. And I guess I could take away the word competitive because the AFC has ran away with it each season so far. The NFC looking to fight back here in season 4. 2 undefeated teams, like I previously mentioned. At the number 1 spot, we do have the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at 5-0, Coach Marty. Number 2, we do have the Philadelphia Eagles, Coach Brian, 5-0. And then you have a handful of teams with only 1 loss on the season so far. Detroit Lions, we have the Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Chargers, Panthers. And I love what I'm seeing with these top teams here, the top 6 teams. It's a good split between AFC teams and NFC teams. And then we have a good chunk of guys with only 2 losses on the season, good momentum heading into the midpoint of the season so far. You do have the Raiders, Rams, Bears, Saints, Cowboys, Steelers, Jets, Seahawks, and the Browns. Good momentum here. And let me tell you something, guys, you cannot count out these teams that are sitting at 500 and below. In just a blink, you can find them become division leaders. We do have the Ravens, 49ers, Patriots, Packers sitting at 500. These guys sitting at 500 and below. You got the Broncos, Dragons, Colts, Commanders, Titans. And with only 1 win on the season so far, a new head coach, Coach J-Mac, taking over the Dolphins, sitting at 1-4, looking to turn it around. You do have the Dolphins, Cardinals, Chiefs, Falcons, Bengals, Vikings, and the Oilers with no wins on the season so far. And like I said, you cannot sleep on any of these opponents. They have the rosters. They can easily turn this season around by taking it 1 game at a time, 1 play at a time. And I'm looking forward to see what they can do. All right, so we're jumping straight to team stats. Let's take a look at the league, man, see how teams are performing across the league. So starting out with the defense, they say defense wins ball games. Now this is going to be pass yards allowed, no fly zone. We're going to name off the top 5. Jags, 1,100. You cannot pass on this defense. Packers, number 2. Raiders, 3rd. Seahawks, 4th. The Browns, 5th. And let's take a look at the rushing category. Teams you cannot run the ball against. You have the Browns sitting at 1st place. Cowboys, 2nd. Bills, 3rd. Eagles, 4th. Steelers, 5th. Now these are the teams that allow the least amount of points per game so far here in the season. The Jags only allowing 120 points so far here in the season. Eagles at the 2nd spot. Cowboys 3rd. Ravens 4th. Seahawks 5th. Now, what teams have the most quarterback sacks? What team is getting to the quarterback? Steelers lead that spot with 19 sacks in the season so far. 49ers, Falcons, Eagles, Bills. What team is forcing the fumbles? Let's find out. We got the Jags. Now, this is fumble recoveries. Fumble recoveries is what it says, right? Jags sitting at 6. Saints, Falcons, Raiders, Steelers. And who can get the turnovers by interceptions? Panthers lead this category with 24 interceptions in the season so far. You have the Cowboys, Steelers, Chiefs, and the Bills to round it off there at number 5. All right, shout out to those great defenses, man. Good job to you guys performing well in the league so far. But hey, you got to get points on the board, and the primary way you could do that is there on offense. So let's take a look at the offensive leaders here in the league so far. Now, first category is just total offensive yards. You do have the Commanders, 2,800 yards on the season so far. Then you have the Chargers, Titans, Steelers, Bills. The league leaders in the passing category, you do have the Commanders, 2,500 yards so far. Eagles at number 2, Chargers 3rd, Titans 4th, Raiders 5th. And this is the team that can really run the ball. You have the Packers sitting at number 1 with 964 yards, a good leap between them and the second spot, which is the Bears, 745, Jets 705, Cowboys 665, and then Steelers 630. Now these are teams that really put up points. Panthers sitting at the number 1 spot, 50 points per game, a high-powered offense. Eagles number 2, Chargers 3rd, Bills 4th, Steelers 5th. Now this is based on passing touchdowns. You do have the Commanders, Steelers, Eagles, Chargers, Raiders to round off the top 5. Let's take a look at the rushing touchdowns. You have the Bears, 13 rushing touchdowns on the season so far. You do have the Saints at number 2, Packers, Chargers, Cowboys. Now these are teams that really like to move the chains and keep the ball in their possession. You have the Commanders leading in the first downs gained, should I say, in the season so far with 127. Bills, Titans, Chargers, Falcons, and that wraps up the top offenses in the league so far. All right, man, I just wanted to wrap up this video with some player stats. You guys know I love my player stats, man. Who's balling, who can improve? Let's dive into it, man. So taking a look at total passing yards here in the season, Jaden Daniels leads the way. Passing touchdowns is going to be Jaden Daniels again, 26 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. That can be a potential reason why this team's record isn't where it needs to be. We're just going to go down this line here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the touchdown category. Quarterbacks that are getting the ball in the end zone. You do have Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields sitting at number 2. 26 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Jalen Hurts really performing well. 25 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Justin Herbert, 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And to wrap this off, you have Shedeur Sanders of the Las Vegas Raiders, 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Just some honorable mentions. You see what Josh Allen's doing. You see what Steve McNair is doing. Guys that are really balling out. And I gotta touch base on the guys that need to throw the ball away. Leading in the interception category, you do have Warren Franklin of the Patriots, 14 touchdowns to 26 interceptions. You have Matthew Tennant of the Falcons, 17 touchdowns to 24 interceptions. You do have Bo Nix, 12 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. Jaden Daniels, as we mentioned, 26 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. CJ Stroud of the Oilers, you do have 8 touchdowns to 20 interceptions. These are guys that really got to consider throwing the ball away or being less aggressive, and that can ultimately affect their record in a positive way. Yards per game, leading that is Jalen Hurts with 437, Jaden Daniels, Bryce Young, Justin Herbert, Jake Merklinger. These guys are really balling out, man. And what's the most sacked quarterback in the league? It's going to be Arch Manning. Then you have Stephon Wright. You do have Brandon Cook. We cannot block this guy to save our lives. Will Levis, Tyson Pierman. These are quarterbacks that are under severe pressure every single game. And that wraps up our quarterbacks, man. Let's dive into the running backs. All right, we got some elite running backs in the league. Let's take a look at the top rushers here in the Madden Move Season 4. Travis Etienne, 87 attempts, 729 yards. Jerome Ford, 91 attempts, 682 yards. Then you have Jarrell Cruz, 632. Jahmyr Gibbs, 550. And Tracy Tompkins, 508. We're going to take a look at yards per average. And you see it's just, those guys that get a few carries here and there. So let me take a look at the actual yards per carry average from these top 5. 8.4, 7.5, 8.3, 6 yards per carry, rounding it off with 5 yards per carry. Great performances from those running backs for their teams. Jerome Ford leads the way with 10 rushing touchdowns. Average rush yards per game is going to be Travis with 121. These guys really know how to run the football. And leading in that fumbling category, you do have quarterbacks leading the way there. Bo Nix and Brandon Cook cannot hold on to the ball. Jamar Sharp, a running back of the Commanders, with 3 fumbles. Montrell Edwards, 3 fumbles. And rounding it out, you do have Justin Fields with 3 fumbles himself. But what are the running backs that can really break tackles? Of course, we see Travis again. Then you got Braylon Allen, Jahmyr Gibbs, Isaiah Pacheco, Jerome Ford. And for the longest run of the game, longest run of the season so far, you have Jarrell Cruz. Those are running backs that are really getting it done. Diving into the receiver end, outstanding rookie, man. This guy was one of the greatest prospects I have ever seen. You have Jonathan Widemer. However you want to pronounce that last name, but I believe it's Widemer. 28 receptions, 85 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. Then you have Brock Bowers, a tight end, number 2 in the receiving category as far as receptions are concerned, or as far as receiving yards are concerned, Then you have Le'Veon Bell of the Steelers. This is a guy, a running back, top 3 there in receiving yards. Another running back making their appearance. Then you have Big Chig sitting at 655 to wrap up that top 5. This is interesting to see in receiving yards. You have 1 receiver, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs. That gives you a little insight of what the league is looking like, right? Taking a look at receiving touchdowns, Devontae Smith leads the way from the Philadelphia Eagles. Then you have Devin Perriman, George Pickens, Jonathan Widemer, and Brock Bowers rounding out that top 5. Who had the longest reception so far? And that is going to be Elijah Higgins of the Green Bay Packers with a 93-yard reception. Those round out our receivers' performances here in the league so far. All right, that wraps up the offensive side, man. I have a few categories I want to touch base on here for the defense. Let's take a look, man. We're going to start with the total tackles here in the season so far. You do have Dylan Holloway, 44 tackles, Bobby Weaver, Julian Love, Tremaine Edmonds, Leo Chanel, however you want to pronounce that as well. TFLs, who leads the way? You have a 3-way tie, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, and Peyton Wilson with 12 TFLs on the season so far. Then you have Quinnen Williams and Kyle Hamilton tied with John Fitzsimmons. Let's take a look at the sack category. John Fitzsimmons leads the way with 7 sacks in the season so far. Cortland Scott, number 2. Nick Bosa, number 3. Marcus Albury, 4. Then you have Nolan Smith Jr. at number 5. And the defender with the most interceptions, it's a 3-way tie again. We do have Daquan Rowe from the Cleveland Browns, Tremaine Randolph. Then you have Tariq Castro Fields, Sauce Gardner, and Denzel Washington. We have a lot of guys with 5 here, so let's go ahead and go down that list. Marco Wilson, Corey Trice Jr., Quentin Mitchell, Jakarian Bennett. Then you have Minka Fitzpatrick. These are guys that are really getting to the ball. Zone hawks in their own right. Who is forcing fumbles? A lot of guys with 2 across the way. We're only going to do the top 5. Dylan Holloway, John Fitzsimmons once again, Edgerrin Cooper, Jaquez Jackson, and Nate Wiggins. That's going to wrap off that top 5, man. And does anybody have any safeties around the league? Rashawn Gary, Mike Pendleton, and defensive touchdowns, putting up points from the defensive side. You have Tariq Castro Fields, Marco Wilson. They lead the way with 2 defensive touchdowns. All right, guys, that's it. You know, I had to dive into the stats, man. A quick league recap. I'll see you guys in week 7. Here's the schedule. We have the game of the week. We have the Chargers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll see you guys for week 7. Stay tuned for the next league recap. I appreciate y'all, man, and I'll see you then. Peace.
95 chains, I'm a ball out Tom Brady. Michael Vick, I'm a dog.